Welcome to our training to help you boost your TOEFL writing score with one big tip for your question number 2. So this is TOEFL Talk with NoteFull, episode number 4, where we answer your questions, build your vocabulary, and discuss partnering to success so that we work together until you get your dream score. I'm Joseph from the NoteFull team, very excited to be with you, and you see on the screen our big tip. So write your essay in units. That's going to make a lot of sense soon, and it's going to be, I hope, something that really supports your ability to, whether you're taking your TOEFL in 1 week or 1 month or after several months of training, you're able to write a stronger essay to succeed. So how does this work? Well, in listening to your questions, let's actually listen to your questions that inspired this tip that we're going to talk about today and work with right now to help you improve your question number 2. So as you know, as part of this series by now, that when you click on the link below this video, we're going to have a few links below this video. We'll talk about it throughout our lesson. One link takes you to a page where you can use the app that you see on the screen to click and record what you need help with on the TOEFL. We then listen, pick 1 or 2 of your questions that we feel kind of discusses what most students are needing help with, and then we build a lesson based on what you need help with. So that's kind of the whole philosophy at NoteFull as we train, discovering where you need help, where you might be struggling, and create what you need to get past that until you get your dream score. So that's what we say about partnering to success in that way. So let's hear Mohammed, who actually submitted and brought up a great point that a lot of us can relate to that inspired our big tip. So here we go with Mohammed.
The most part which I struggling with is writing. So when I start writing like the independent essay, I always struggling. I don't know why and how to improve it. This is sometimes make me crazy. And I tried to take like online courses. I did TOEFL many times, but still my score lower than 20. And that's
So Mohammed and everyone who can connect and relate to Mohammed, this lesson was created for you. In thinking carefully, what is it that's going to help you and everyone, Mohammed, regardless of how much TOEFL training you have, improve today for question number 2, which is the independent essay, and for others. And so that's part of it. So you're not alone, and everyone who can relate, this lesson is for you. And let's now hear Peace, who also kind of relates the same idea with the writing.
Hi Joseph, thank you for the lecture so far. For the writing section, I have difficulty with time management. I've realized that most times I don't go through my work, like I don't proofread, and I think it's affecting my scores. And also for the writing question too, I need ideas on how to write an organized essay. I sometimes find it difficult to get, maybe reasons with examples, and I get stuck sometimes so too. So can you help me out with this section? I will really appreciate. Thank you.
Absolutely, Peace. Well said. And similar to Muhammad in the sense of here we talk about organization. Here we talk about developing examples. We talk about time management. All of that, after reflection, we can support you through three major tips. And so we actually, from these 2 questions that deal with a lot of what you need help with, are going to create our next 3 episodes where every episode focuses on one tip. So your tip number 1, right? The biggest tip is write your essay in units. So we're going to talk about this right now with an example. Now what you see on the screen is our training, right? So we can get excited. We're going to work on a body paragraph together, an important part of your question number 2 essay, addressing organization, time management, and boosting your writing. So no matter how much training you have, you create an essay that influences, pushes, convinces the graders in the quick minute to 2-3 minutes they spend on your essay to raise your rating. And the computer, because you have one human rater, one computer rater, goes through all the words that you've written and how you've written them and assigns a high rating. So how are we going to do that? So the first thing is thinking in units. So I want to emphasize this lesson and these lessons that we're creating are really meant to work with you over time, right? You've heard us say that before. So this is specific to those of you who need top scores. You can't just take the TOEFL and move on. You need minimums for graduate school, maybe 100 overall. You're struggling to get your minimum requirements for pharmacy, physical therapy, dentistry, teaching licenses, etc., right? There's a lot, nursing, so many students that we work with. So we're working together for weeks and months, right? So how are we going to improve? The first thing is, remember, this is difficult for everybody. Everybody. If it were easy, you would already have passed. So for Muhammad, for Peace, for everybody, it's going to take serious effort, a serious change in how you write so that your level increases, so that you move from an 18 on the writing to a 22, to a 26, to a 30 out of 30, from a 12 on the writing to a 28. And remember, we've worked with so many students who've done that. It works. It is possible. The next thing to work with you, because there are, fundamentally, right? We use that word a couple times, so that's going to be our vocabulary word here. So fundamental. So fundamentally is the adverb. So fundamental, forming a necessary base or core of central importance, a central or primary rule or principle on which something is based. So this kind of fundamental knowledge to boost your score, it's going to take time to master. So when we say write in units, it's almost like your whole way of approaching the TOEFL is in units. So let's talk about question 2. So your question 2 essay, your persuasive essay, is 1 unit, right? You think of that. Think of that right now. In 30 minutes, you're going to produce an essay. That's 1 unit. It's a thing. It's a piece. Now for organization, what do? We divide that units into parts. Now you want to know the purpose of every unit. And you want to remember the TOEFL isn't just strategy. It's comprehension first, strategy second. The graders aren't just robots. They're people who take their responsibility seriously to ensure that universities, graduate schools, and professionals have the academic mastery of English to succeed in the environment. That's what the test is for. So it's not just a template or a memorized example or kind of a specific method that's going to get your dream score. It's a fluency and mastery that you will learn, that comes in steps, that is something that you're going to get here, that's going to have somebody read, feel impressed, and raise your score. So question 2, what's the unit? The unit is to convince. That's the purpose, to convince, or in other words, persuade. So we're going to look at the word persuade, right? We have to remember the unit and what it's about. So if the previous training may not have worked, it could be that if you remember, we looked at the trees so carefully that we forgot the forest. That's in previous vocabulary, right? You miss the forest for the trees. You're so focused on some technique that you lose the purpose, and so when a grader reads, they feel like there's a disconnection. So persuade, the first thing we do when we look at that word persuade, right? Definition: cause someone to do something through reasoning or argument. Isn't that a perfect word for what we're doing? So you actually don't just write your reason and example, you are creating an argument, and that's the method. So you want to always remind yourself you are writing to persuade through an argument. So people don't really, the graders aren't really caring about your reason or what you're arguing for. They want to know that you have the skill of creating an argument to persuade someone about your opinion. So in academic writing and academic professions, right, that's what they are. That's why they want you to take the TOEFL before they admit you. That's why they want you to get a certain score before you get your license, right, among other things. So that's the first thing. We got to remember that. Now, how do we do that? We break that unit down into smaller units. And this is where mastery comes in and technical stuff comes in. So we have 4 units. We have paragraphs, right? And those are the units. Wonder why they do that. So paragraphs. So each unit, so we have 4, has a purpose. And what purpose does that have? The introduction is meant to introduce, right? The body paragraph is really meant to persuade, and the conclusion is meant to summarize. So you have 4 units to develop. And you know, in TOEFL, in our NoteFull TOEFL training programs and everything, I mean, you see that everywhere. You can Google it, you can go on YouTube. So you know that unit. It's divided into 4. So you have 1 unit here, and then you have 4 units here, right? Paragraphs. And they each have a different purpose. So I guess it's in a different language for some reason, even though it's set to English. Good old Microsoft Word. So what we have now is, you know, the different purposes, right? Okay, so when I think about my paragraph, I know it's one part of a larger unit. Now when I think about a paragraph, you know what we teach. So we have the body paragraph. So we're taking a unit, right? So we've broken down question number 2 essay into 4 units paragraph with 4 jobs to do. So that's organization. That's boosting your score. That's the grader reading and seeing clarity and giving you a high rating. So now the paragraph, we divide, I guess you can say, into steps. So steps. Now every paragraph has a different number of steps. To illustrate this, we're going to focus on the body paragraph because that's the most important to create results for you today. So for the body paragraph, we have 4 steps. So the steps are like little units, right? So I don't want you to get confused. It's almost like a unit can be a kilogram or it can be a gram, right? So you kind of narrow down. Okay, so we have the essay. Its job is to persuade. We break that into units to do that job. Paragraphs. That's the next thing. Okay, so you visualize that. Okay, 4 paragraphs. That's what we teach. The 4-paragraph essay, it works to get you a 30 out of 30. Each unit has a job. So we're not going to talk about each job, you know, a function, a purpose. And so what I want you to do now is think that within the paragraph, so we zoom in, and now the paragraph has steps. So what do we see there? We have 4 units. So there are 4 steps, right? So to put it on the screen here, we have our essay. That's 1 unit. So 1 color. And then we have our paragraphs. Each has a purpose. So let me make that a little more even there. So we have our intro, a little smaller, body paragraphs bigger, conclusion smaller. Okay, so those are units within that. Then we zoom in. And then when we zoom in, we realize that in order to write a nice paragraph that does the job for the larger essay, we divide the paragraph into units, into steps, right? So for the body paragraph, which these 2 are an example of that we're going to work on today, we have 4 steps. So we make, you know, little square there, the step 1, step 2, let me zoom in a little more, right? So we go in here, We have a lot of craziness going on. So we go in here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So as we say, it's not drawn to scale, but you get the idea. So we zoom in, and now we have these units. Now this is why you can study so hard, right, Muhammad, everybody, and not improve. Because if you're not thinking like this, what you're improving isn't doing the job of helping the larger unit and the larger unit. So a rater is always, the rater is always seeing the same disorganization, so to speak. The computer, the same thing. It's not seeing the words come together in a way that creates coherence and everything fits. So that's the other vocab word we're going to build on, right? Because our essay needs to develop coherence. So that's the quality of being logical and consistent. So we've been doing this for 12 years, and we created this series to support you and everybody, every member of the NoteFull community. You haven't registered with us, you're new to us, you've been studying with us for months and are improving little by little, right? The quality of being logical and consistent. So that's consistency, that this little unit right here in green, right, feeds, helps, supports the biggest unit in blue. So it's like that unit in green helps the unit in red, helps the unit in blue. So we're thinking about this, right? And soon we're going to write our essay. Now here's a huge, huge thing, right? Very big. In small group tutoring, this is what we've been focusing on. I broke my image, so we'll get it to work later. But the main idea here is that now you divide sentences and you divide the steps. So you divide the steps into sentences, right? Here's where it gets a little tricky. So here's where it's difficult. Sometimes one step, for example, giving your reason, right? One step in the body paragraph, explain your reason. What's your reason for why you believe the way you do? Oftentimes that's one sentence. Sometimes it can be two. So sentences and steps aren't perfect mirrors. So for example, your conclusion, right? We're going to teach this soon, but at the end of the paragraph, for mastery, for what works to get your 30, we conclude every body paragraph, right? We have a concluding sentence, but sometimes that conclusion can be part of the sentence that ends your example. So what happens is that sometimes one sentence can do two steps. Sometimes two sentences can do one step. This is the level of mastery that boosts you from a 20 to a 24, 26. Understanding that, right? So you think in units and you're aware of your sentences. So for ease, we usually train one sentence for like one step, two sentences for two steps, then you have a bigger, more important step like an example. Great to have 4 to 8 sentences, so it's easier. But it's not always that perfect. So that's why you have to be aware of the steps, and you have to be like the units. Now, when you write a sentence, okay, so now when we have steps, we create those steps with sentences, and now we know, to get a 28 out of 30, a 30 out of 30, it's a little bit more advanced, but in general, we complete the steps with sentences, and that varies. In the body paragraph, right, the first step, stating your reason, the last step, giving your conclusion, generally one sentence each. The second step, which expands and explains your reason, kind of generally gives the logic of how does this reason lead you to believe your answer. That can be 1 to 2 sentences. And the example, step 3, again, we're going to review this, is anywhere from 4 to maybe 8 sentences. So now you think, okay, 1 to 8, maybe, something like that, units. So now you think every step, you zoom in, and a step is completed in sentences. Some steps to complete them require more communication. I have to talk a lot, right? I have to write more. I have to give an argument. So I have to use more than one sentence. For example, question 1 of the writing, question 3 of the speaking. Sometimes to explain something, you need, 50 words. You need 4 sentences. If you say it, with less information, you can miss some important things. Now here's the next thing. Okay, very important. Remember, no one said it's going to be easy. So I want to treat you as a professional, right? You're a professional TOEFL taker. And if you're watching this video, you want the top score. And my belief and what we train is that at the end of this, the value that you get from training with such precision is going to be something that's going to benefit you for the rest of your career. And so here, I like balance, so I want all the dashes to be the same. But how do we construct sentences? The best way I can train you is through grammatical units, right? So grammar, say grammatical phrases, grammatical word groups. Any sentence has anywhere from, I would say, 1 to 6 units. All right. So now you have a sense. So all I want us to do is look at this. It may be confusing. It's okay. We're going to have an image that illustrates this. But here's the idea. We think in units where we can zoom in and zoom out with ease. So as you're writing one sentence in the body paragraph, you know what step you're on. You know how you're completing that step with this sentence. You're building the sentence with grammatical accuracy to get your dream score, so you're just thinking in a few groups of words at a time. Like a grammatical word group is like 3 to 6 words on average, right? So 3 to 6 words, it's simpler for you to have your best grammar there than just like one big sentence. So it's like, okay, I'm writing this little sentence, I'm constructing it in word groups, and I'm able to kind of zoom out and understand the step that I'm doing. And I'm able to zoom out and understand how this step contributes to the paragraph. And I'm able to zoom out and see how that paragraph connects to the essay. That's a 30 out of 30 mindset. That's you jumping your score. I promise you, I guarantee it. If it were easy, everyone would do it. If it took 2 minutes to explain, I'd explain it in 2 minutes. If it were something that you can grab faster, I'll do my best in future lessons to do that. But that's it on the screen. Now, let's look at it in practice. So I'm going to scroll up here, and we see the body paragraph. So here we have a question, right? Nice basic question. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? People behave differently when they wear different clothes. Use specific examples to support your answer. So first, what are we going to do in response, right? Everybody. Muhammad, peace, everybody watching. We are going to construct an essay that persuades my reader to agree with me. The unit, the essay, will be in paragraphs. So how am I going to persuade? I'm going to take the reader through 4 paragraphs that introduce the reader to my idea, my opinion, powerfully convince with body paragraphs, and then summarizes with a conclusion. So at the end, I've done the job of persuading. How is each paragraph going to do its job to be strong, to get my dream score? I'm going to divide each paragraph into steps so that the paragraph does its job. How do I make sure those steps are strong? The step is made of sentences, that each sentence I write is not just words. I'm not building my word count. I'm not trying to write, 400, 500 words and that's it. A sentence is read by the grader. And in interviewing graders, right, TOEFL raters, the average rater does not read your essay, right? Interviews with graders. Right? They do not read your entire essay on average. The graders we've interviewed, they read parts of your essay. They read random sentences, specific sentences they feel are important. Some may read everything, some may not. We interviewed those that don't. And we interviewed enough that we feel like there's enough people that that's how it's evaluated. So in reading a few sentences, Graders are able to understand whether that sentence is part of the larger unit, it makes sense, it's connected, it's not off topic. Then if a sentence is a little confusing, he or she might read around it. And that gives them an authentic sense of your skill, right? Because they know how you write a few sentences is how you write most of them. So that's why it's so important, and that's why it can be tough to improve. Because first, if all your sentences aren't consistent with your idea, with what you're trying to say, the grader might read a sentence that's disconnected, and that influences the rating. Now, the next thing is to make grammatically correct sentences that are simpler for the reader, simpler for the grader. The computer rewards you with good grammar. You need to divide those sentences into units, so you're really thinking in pieces. So we're going to concentrate on the body paragraph, right? So we have 2 body paragraphs. These are paragraphs 2 and 3 of our 4-paragraph essay. And we divide that paragraph into what? 4 steps. So we think, okay, the purpose of this paragraph is to create the argument that persuades. How am I going to do that? So you're always remembering with each sentence you write, this is to persuade my reader. How do I do that? We have 4 steps. So what I want you to do, you can pause the video, right? Pause the video. I'm going to disappear for a moment. And I want you to read these steps, memorize them, master them. And then read this paragraph. And then think to yourself, you see how this is yellow, green, blue, gray? I want you to color in your mind the sentences so you see which sentence is doing which step. Some steps have 2 sentences, some have 3, some have more. So this is how you think when you write. Okay, this job, this step. So go ahead and do that now. Begin. All right. So now I hope that you were able to do this, right? So these are the steps. So I'm going to move this up here. And I want you to see how this is a step. So as you are writing this sentence, your brain is aware, I am developing the 3rd step of my body paragraph, which is meant to be a persuasive argument, to develop my persuasive essay, to get my dream score. So every sentence has a function and a purpose. So what I want you to do now is pause the video and kind of take some time to double check if you were able to do this. Did you think one sentence was part of a different step, or you couldn't really connect it? So go, and I'll explain the underlined shortly. So go ahead, pause the video, and review this now. All right, coming back in. So now what you have understood is the units of sentences and steps. Now we're going to dig into grammar. Now this is a pretty big deal, because a lot of times when students write, right, Muhammad, peace, everybody, there is a habit, right, to, and we'll give you a nice vocabulary word for that, a proclivity, right, a proclivity. So it's a nice word, proclivity, a tendency to choose or do something regularly, an inclination or predisposition toward a particular thing. Students have a proclivity to really write something big and then double check the grammar. Or every word they write, kind of double check the grammar and rewrite the sentence, which both of those are not going to help you as much as think first, type second, which is tip number 3 that we're going to talk about in I think in episode 6. But the idea is you write in grammatical chunks, so it's like you write 3 to 6 words at a time and you review that grammatically. And before you start writing, you think about the grammar. Now some of you may be thinking, well, I can't do that under 30 minutes. For those of you who are getting the same score, that doesn't mean you can't do it in the future, and that doesn't mean it's not required. It simply says, oh, I am not getting my score because I can't do that in 30 minutes. Does that make sense? It's like, oh, that's the skill I need to develop. I do that and I get my dream score, right? So it's not magic, and it means, for example, right now, if we go to the gym and you're able to lift 50 pounds, right? Let's say 25 kilos, you lift it, you're strong, but we're not strong enough to lift 100 pounds or lift, 50 kilos. So we work out. So just because you don't have that power yet doesn't mean it's not critical, doesn't mean you won't develop it. And that's where we need the hours. So that's why in our online classes, this is what we're always training, and we get results. So when you see this, let's break down this sentence right here, right? So how are we writing it with this unit philosophy? Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to increase our care, because a lot of times we're writing kind of to use words that we want to use, templates that we just apply. And if you don't care about every word you use the best you can, every group, you will be rewarded with the score you don't want. We have to increase our care. So for example, we begin with for example. This is a grammatical phrase. It has a lot of grammatical points to it that can get your dream score. First, we need to remember every sentence begins with a capitalized letter. We also are careful with the spelling. For example. Now we have a comma, because so for example is a phrase, right? It's a prepositional phrase. You have the preposition for, and again, if you don't have this grammar knowledge, it's okay. I'm going to give you instructions on how we can teach it to you so you can boost your score. So for is a preposition. It's like on, at, with, for. It's followed by a noun, example. And it's an expression. So we don't say for an example, right? The article an. So we think in this group, so we complete it. And we remember what this means. Sometimes we write it and we forget. For example means I have just finished telling you something general. Now I'm going to give you a specific occurrence that illustrates what I just said. So if I say I love apples, for example, I'm going to follow that with a situation where I ate an apple I loved, what kind of apple I love, right? So we have to think that way, because sometimes you will write additionally, furthermore, on the other hand, and what you write after that doesn't match. It's not something that matches the meaning of furthermore, for example, on the other hand. And that's enough for the graders to kind of see your essay at a level that you don't want. So we're careful. So we continue. When I got ready to go to work this morning. So you want to write that down as a unit. So how do we do that? So you need to remember, okay, for example needs that comma, and then this unit, when. So when is a subordinating conjunction. Again, if you don't know that word, it's okay, but to go so deep, this lesson will be like 2-3 hours. And so rather than that, we're going to break it into parts. So you know the grammar of when. When is followed by a subject and a verb, and then a comma when the main sentence follows after. So when I got ready, okay, to go to work this morning. So you need to think in that way. So when you write when, you pause. Okay, I need a subject verb object. So I got ready. Do you know that's a complete idea? That's finished. So I want to enhance that. I want to say why. So we have the infinitive phrase. I'm studying to improve my TOEFL score. To improve my TOEFL score. So as you write like this, as you read like this, your grammar knowledge improves dramatically. And then when something doesn't make sense, like you read something in an example essay here, you read something in a book that doesn't quite work, you can Google that now. Like you can write the words you don't understand, Google it, maybe put it in quotation marks, and write grammar, and then kind of do the work. Or we have the course to help you that we'll talk about at the end. So when I got ready to go to work. Now, do you notice the grammar here? To go, right? That's an infinitive phrase. To eat. Why did I get ready? To go, to sleep, to vacation, whatever it might be. To is a place. I'm going to the beach. I'm going to the supermarket. Is work a place? Yes, it's a general reference. It's almost like home, right? So sometimes you have to look at the grammar, because you know how sometimes it's tough because it feels like there are so many things to learn, so many things to memorize when it comes to not making little errors? That is what we have to develop the mastery of to get our dream score. But the interesting thing is, when you learn this, you use it over and over. It applies to many words. So, to go to work. Do you have that grammatical phrase mastered and understood? Something as simple as that. If we don't, we need to take some time with it. This morning. Now, this morning is an adverb. It's like tonight, tomorrow, but it's an expression. In the morning, we could say that. This morning is another way to say it. So so it's like when I got ready. Now I'm telling the adverb to go to work. Why did I get ready? Then the adverb when, this morning. So for Muhammad and peace and everyone, this can feel overwhelming, right? So what does overwhelming mean? Let's go over here. Very great in amount, right? And then we go over here, and then we have bury or drown beneath a huge mass. It's like, oh my goodness. But 12 years of experience helping thousands of you reach your dream score. This is the work to improve. Some of us have this naturally, unconsciously, because we've read so much, because our native language is very similar to English in how these phrases are constructed. So you don't want to compare, right? Because if you think, oh, somebody else just learned this tip and strategy and then they got their dream score after like 1 week, we might think, oh, I need my tip and strategy to get my dream score in 1 week. But that ignores we have different initial languages that we learn that have different connections with English. We've read in English different amounts. You know, our training in grammar is different. Some of us learned English without serious grammar training. Some of us have. You know, so there's too much variation. So just to let you know, unconscious, which, let's see a good definition here. Unaware. I like that. Unaware of. So some of us have this skill unconsciously, which means we have it, but we don't think about it. For example, the average native speaker, in my experience, would have challenges teaching the language they know because the skill is unconscious. Like, why do we use that word? I don't know, but we always use it. So conscious mastery is like different than unconscious ability. So there are two things to think about. Both are helping you. As you read more, as you write more in this way, you're going to naturally get better because your brain is going to start doing that unconsciously. Reading in this way, learning in this way, and it's going to boost your ability. The other thing is consciously, by reviewing this video. Now, does it take this much to improve your score? In my experience, yes. Or I would not have invested the time to create this video for you, or, asked you to invest your time to watch it. So now we get to the next part. We know that we've just said when. Now we have our next sentence, our idea. I chose to wear formal clothing, right? So that's a complete sentence. Now I need to remember when begins a dependent clause. So what that means is it's not the main thing, right? When I got ready is extra information. This is the main piece of information. Now, this way of thinking helps you for the paraphrase question in the reading. This way of speaking makes you clearer in the speaking section. And this way of listening is dramatically going to improve your understanding and listening comprehension, because then you're so well trained that when you hear the professor say when, while, before, after, you know that's extra information. The important information is different. So if I say, when I'm hungry, good for you to know, but you're waiting for what? Like when I'm hungry, what? When this, what? Because the what, like when I'm hungry, I eat, that is the most important thing. The TOEFL is testing you on that. They're testing you on the reading. Can you tell the difference between extra information and main information? And in the writing, they're seeing if you know that. So I chose to wear formal clothing. So you see here, I chose to wear formal clothing. Now, this again, do you know the grammar? It seems simple, right? So I is the subject, chose is the verb. Now, to wear is like to go. It's an infinitive. But here, it functions as an adverb. Here, it functions as a noun, which it can. I chose something. I chose to wear. So here, this is functioning as a noun. Do you know that? If you don't know that, it's going to be tough for you to boost your grammar enough and write in a grammatically correct way to really transform your writing. And if you don't, it's okay. Because if you feel overwhelmed, it's also okay. Because sometimes when we learn one thing new, that one thing tells us, oh man, there's so much more to improve. So we forget, I just learned something new. So I'm better now than I was before. Because our brain is like, oh, look at all of this. So what I want to remind you of is, forget about that. That's our direction. That's our goal. We don't need to be perfect to get our dream score, but we do need to be better, right? We need to improve some skill. And we got better because at least you're seeing how to think, and it's like, oh, that's why I haven't gotten my dream score yet, or that's why it's tough to improve. Because for me, I need to improve that grammar, that way of thinking. So now, formal clothing is the noun that's the object of the infinitive that's acting as the subject. So it's like, whoa, this is kind of tricky. So I is the subject, chose is the verb, right? The noun is a noun phrase, to wear formal clothing. Like I chose something. So to wear is a verb. So even that infinitive, to wear, is followed by a noun, formal clothing. Now here's the challenge. When you are at a certain level of English mastery, it's kind of expected that you have a sense of that. And if you don't, it means we have to go back to learn it. Now, sometimes you don't have to do this much work, right? Sometimes what I want you to know is just by thinking in units, your grammar is already strong enough. So by thinking in units, now you have enough coherence. Remember coherence, where you'll boost your dream score. You'll get a higher score as a result. So I want you to know, it's like your job for the greatest ease is just to keep getting better at all you learn until you're producing essays where you get feedback that say that's your dream score. Because you don't have to do this perfectly to get your dream score, 24 out of 30, a 26 out of 30, a 25 out of 30, a 20 out of 30. You just need to keep improving it. Now, here's the other thing we teach you. When you write, write for excellence. So what that means is you're not writing at your highest understanding of grammar. That's the mistake. Wait a sec, I got to write complex sentences. No, you need to write correct sentences, right? Because if you write something complicated incorrectly, your score goes down. If you write something uncomplicated, simple, correctly, your score goes up. So the other thing that I like to say is your ideas are complicated. So know to explain that. Your sentences, even when you try to be simple, will have the grammar variety, will have the complexity that is necessary to get a 30 out of 30. Again, 12 years of experience allow me to tell you that. So again, simplest language possible, the grammar you know the best you can, part by part. Okay, we're almost done. Right, it's a lot of work. Stay with me. I'm afraid I'm losing you. But again, I want to make these videos really helpful for you the best I can. It's the best we can at NoteFull. So I chose to wear formal clothing. So we're writing in grammatical units. Now I have a semicolon. I have a semicolon. I could have an and because I have completed my main sentence. So I know I either need a period and a new sentence or some kind of connection. So I decide a semicolon because of the meaning. It wasn't an accident. So again, you see this simplicity. So this complicated sentence, it's fairly complex, even though it may not seem that way, because there's a lot of units. For example, comma, perfect, capitalization, no and, I know this expression, comma, I was careful. Okay, I'm giving an illustration of what you already read. I choose different clothes depending on the occasion. When I got ready, and then I build on that, to go to work this morning, comma, right? Because I begin with an adverb clause, and then I have the main clause, right? I chose to wear formal clothing, semicolon, because I know my sentence is complete. And I didn't say I chose formal clothing. I could have, but it makes more sense to wear formal clothing because I'm comfortable making my infinitives into nouns, right? So for example, I chose to walk to the beach. I chose to sleep early. So once you know how to master this one expression, you have a variety, right? Now you can say many things more clearly. Your ability to communicate has improved. So then I have it wasn't an accident. Okay. Here's the hard part. Here's what we train. At the same time that you're checking grammar, you're checking connection, and you're checking purpose. So first, you're checking grammar. Second, you're making sure that you're doing the job of the third step. You're giving an example that supports what you've just stated. And third, what you're doing is you're creating connection. So this seems like a lot, and I worry, like, oh, did I say too much? So I might have, because we have an expression in English, right? Drink from a fire hose. And we know what that is, right? So let me go ahead and put it here on the screen, right? Drink from a fire hose meaning. So drink from a fire hose is again to be overwhelmed, specifically inundated with an uncapped, unfiltered amount. Take a small amount from an enormous, hard to manage quantity. So here's the image, right? Like that. Right? What's going to happen there? Not so good. So perhaps I did do this. But it's I'm starting this series and my goal is just to teach you what is most helpful. So remember that you can review. So what happens is that as you create this sentence, you're looking for the grammatical clarity. Taking a deep breath, right? You know what you're writing, you're thinking in little pieces, checking the grammar. The second thing you're doing is you're remembering the step, right? And the third thing that you're doing is remembering your need to be connected with the question. So do you see these underlined portions? Choose, close, behave. When you want, a synonym of choose. You wear clothes, the focus, behavior. When you want, clothes. Then here, chose to wear formal clothing. This is not repetition. This is coherence. The grader reads this sentence expecting everything we talked about. Grammatical clarity must be done to get our score to the level, right? We can make mistakes. We can make more mistakes with grammar and get a 20 than we can to get a 26. So it depends. But so they're looking for grammatical clarity. They're looking for coherence, meaning this sentence makes sense in the paragraph, which means it does its job in the step. And this sentence is helping to persuade the reader about your opinion. So it's part of the larger unit of the essay. So in one sentence, that's why they don't read everything. In one sentence, they get a sense of your grammar. They get a sense of your understanding of, the paragraph that you're writing. And they get a sense of your connection with your larger idea. So they read a couple of sentences, and depending on how well you do that, they assign a rating, right? And so to improve, that's why we can be taking classes for weeks or months. If the classes are not developing this, it might be important that you enhance your training with this. If the classes are teaching you all of this, then it's like going to the gym. Trust that you are getting stronger and better, but we just have to keep going. So there are so many things, so many more things to talk about. But that's why at NoteFull we talk about partnership, because success on the TOEFL, as I said before, we're creating this for you, for those of you who are frustrated, for those of you who've actually been off and on in the TOEFL for years, for those of you who are improving little by little but need to improve 20, 30 points. So this regular guidance, this deep work into improving our explanation, so this exam doesn't keep you back from success. I promise you, however overwhelmed you may feel, step by step, day by day, I promise you, you will get better. And what you're learning works. So even though you've gotten this fire hose of information, right, this overwhelming amount of information, you've improved. Because you've drank some water, right? It may not feel so good, but you got some nourishment. And now you have awareness of how to keep improving. Whew. Hope that makes sense. So remember, you can review and go back in the video, review these paragraphs, see how they're built, take your time with it. So many more things to train you with. But before we talk about partnership, let's review our points and our vocab. What was that tip? That simple tip that goes very deep. Write your essay in units. Even if it feels overwhelming, that's really simple, right? Write your essay in units. With the level you have now, if you start thinking that way, even though it's not perfect, you will improve your essay. Keep working with us. Keep working together. And we'll keep building your skill until you pass. And so now our vocab. So first we learned fundamental, right? This is a fundamental tip to help you improve. Write your essay in units. Think in units. So to do the larger things, you go through the smaller pieces. But as you write the smaller pieces, you remember that's to build the larger thing. Like if you're building a house, you do it in steps, right? But every step has to be with understanding of the larger house you want to build, or else it's a dangerous house to live in. Persuade. That was a great word, right? Move someone to do something as a result of argument. So you want to remember question number 2. The whole thing is meant that at the end of the essay, the grader has a sense of persuasion. I agree with you. You've made a very good point. Coherence. We think in units, and we need to be able to zoom in, to the unit where we're actually in the for example, the when, I get ready, I got ready, we're so close into that unit, and we can zoom out, right? Our brain kind of has this experience of, okay, I know this is contributing to my essay, I know this is like a larger part of it. Then we have proclivity. So our proclivity, our tendency, our habit, as we write is like, let's just get what's in my head out there the fast as I can. But now we realize we got to take time. We got to think in units. So to help you, essays that have 300 words will score higher than essays that have 450 words. Why? When the essay of 300 words does this that we just explained effectively, and the essay that has 450 words doesn't. So word count matters after this is done well. So some of us are writing 400, 500 plus word essays, some of us not, and we're suffering because we have no time to think. So you will score higher when you train yourself to write maybe 300 words well, 350 to get a 24, 25, 26. Overwhelming and drink from a fire hose, they're related, right? So if you feel that way, take a deep breath with me. Know you can always review this video, and it's just in an attempt with this series to get better little by little for you, and also to ensure that you get the help that you need. And unconscious. Don't forget that when you train and think this way, as you start to read, as you start to speak, as you listen, it's going to unconsciously help you. Because when you read, listen, or speak in units, you read, listen, and speak better. You improve your score. And some people don't have to learn this so carefully, so you want to be careful. Some people might say, oh, that's too much. You don't have to do that. Well, only if you're doing so much training or reading so much that it's going to happen unconsciously. Because no matter what, that kind of essay, it needs to be look and feel and read a certain way. And so either way, we have to produce that. So be careful if your friends have succeeded faster, because we're all on different journeys. We all have different backgrounds. So that some people have unconscious skill from different training when they were growing up. Don't let that make you think less of your skill or power, or think that there's a shortcut, right? We know shortcut. Hard work and effort is going to take you to success. And of course, we just talked about drink from a fire hose. So, wow. And so just like you, I'm feeling a lot of energy from all the discussion that we had. And so what I'd like to do, if you're watching to the end, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm grateful. I want to so encourage you that you've just made you're special. You watched an intense, focused video on training to get your dream, and it wasn't easy, because how can success at something challenging be easy? It takes effort. So I give you a thumbs up, right? So I'm so happy that I'm still with you, and just kind of breathe. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up if you found it helpful. Subscribe for the next tips. So this is our way to stay in partnership, so we keep working together. And to kind of take the next step together, if you're not already a student, on our site we have our TOEFL prep training. So a lot of students sometimes wonder how to start. So we've created a getting started page. So right now, depending on how you feel, right, might want to do it a little bit later or right away, not to lose the energy and momentum, right? If you want to start working together now, take a deep breath and allow yourself to invest 30 minutes to kind of understand how we train. If you're an ideal student for NoteFull, so you have the best experience possible. And if so, on the link below, we have Get Started with NoteFull. Click on that link. And if you'd like to just leave a question, so you maybe leave a comment right? Let us know how this video helped, what you want help with. Just click on the watch below this video, click on the link that takes you to the app to the record. So we're going to say recording app link. You click on that and you go. As I said, I'm proud of your effort, inspired by your commitment. Let's keep working together through this series and through the site. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Your dream score is coming. Bye-bye.